we still need that. So organization of it. A larger organization is there which they want to use larger capacity of the cloud. They still also should have this particular organization. Now the organization will give them what resources they can access and what they can perform the administration activities and the billing and utilization of it. So it is a self-service portal for each and everyone who is going to use it. In a private cloud, an end employee can be an organization, a department head can be an organization. Anybody who want to use and isolate their own infrastructure, they should be able to do that. So what is this organizational VDC? We'll divide the one larger provider VDC into smaller VDC. I'm coming to the cloud, I'm asking for only 2 gigahertz processing power. But your physical server is having a 40 gigahertz processing power. Look at from a requirement perspective. Now what is provider VDC is telling? The provider VDC is consisting of 3 ESX servers, which is 100 gigahertz, 100 gigahertz, 100 gigahertz. So what is the total capacity we have in the provider VDC? 300 gigahertz. Now if I provide this 300 gigahertz to the one customer, and if you ask him to pay 1 lakh rupees per month, so will he be able to pay it? No. He will say that I don't need 300 gigahertz processing power. I need only 2 gigahertz processing power with 4 GB RAM. Now another customer says I need 20 gigahertz processing power with 64 GB of RAM. Another customer says I need a 40 gigahertz processing power with 128 GB RAM with 1 terabyte capacity of storage. Now every customer has their own individual requirement. Now how do you achieve that? One customer says I'll pay based on the usage. That means that if I create a virtual machine, if I use it for 10 days, I'll pay for only 10 days. So I'll not pay for the entire month. Another customer says, okay, I'll pay as you grow. Okay, so I'll keep creating the resources, don't limit any resources. As and when required, I'll keep creating, I'll pay for it. Another customer says, I'll pay based on the resource allocation, resource guarantee. Okay, you are telling that you are going to give me 40 gigahertz processing power. But what is the guarantee that you are giving me 40 gigahertz processing power? How much you are going to reserve? So I need at any given point of time 40 gigahertz processing power should be available to me. And that is what we call as reservations. Now when you are reserving it, what is the disadvantage for you as a provider? You cannot allocate the resources to any other customer. That means that resources are being delegated to that. Now what you are going to do? You are going to charge more for him. Okay. Let's say you are putting a 40 gigahertz processing power and you are giving it to the 5 customers. Whoever want to use it, use it. That way 5 customers are paying you. But one customer is saying that no, I don't want to share this 40 gigahertz. I want this 40 gigahertz dedicated to you. Now 5 customer resources you are giving to one customer. Now whatever the cost you want, either 5 customers or one customer, they have to pay me the same cost. Now every customer has their own requirements. Now that is where the organizational VDCs will provide the resources, allocate the CPU, memory, storage and network resources to the organizations. It defines how the organization can consume the resources, whether they can consume based on the memory or reservation or a pay as you grow or pay as you use of it, limit kind of things. Now the organization will consist of multiple organizational VDCs. Organizational VDCs will come through the provider VDC of it. One organization can consist of multiple organizational VDCs. Why do we need multiple organizational VDCs? One customer is coming and saying that I need 2 servers with high performance and 5 servers with a low performance. So I want to save the cost. Now this is your high performance cluster. This is your low performance cluster. Now what do you need to do here now? You need to provide certain amount of processing power from this one and you need to provide certain amount of processing power this one. Now how do you classify this one? Now look at from above. So on top of the provider VDCs, we have something called as an organizational VDCs. So we have called as an organizational VDCs. These organizational VDCs are created from provider VDCs. From provider VDCs. Now, by using this provider VDC, I am creating two organizational VDCs. What is the capacity of processing power which we have here? 300 gigahertz. Now, I can say that this organization VDC is having a 20 gigahertz processing power, and this organizational VDC is having what is a 30 gigahertz processing power. And this organization VDC is having a 10 gigahertz processing power, and this organizational VDC is having what is 40 gigahertz processing power. So what you are trying to do now, the physical capacity which is available here, you are logically segregating into smaller portions using what is an organizational VDC. How much you want to allocate, you allocate to that. Clear? Simple.
Provider VDC, we have aggregate of this compute resources.
Correct.
So whenever customer, I am coming, I have a requirement.
Yes.
You create, you are provider,
Correct.
create an organizational VDC for me.
Correct.
This is yours. You can one more organization.
Exactly. Okay. Look at from a generic example. So you have a market. So I would say what is a vegetable market. So in a vegetable market, you see what does it a broker who is sitting in the vegetable market. Correct. What does this broker does? One lorry of mangoes will come. He'll buy the entire truck of the mangoes. Right. So he might buy another truck of mangoes. I'll say that I'm having a 30-ton capacity of mangoes. Now he is a provider VDC with 30-ton capacity of mangoes. Now one person will come to the market, a reseller. Basically, we see people who are on the resellers, right? On the vehicles. This guy says that I want to have 500 kgs of mangoes. Supermarket guy comes. He says that I need 1 ton capacity of mangoes. Reliance supermarket. Bandi person comes. He says that I need 40 kgs of mangoes. Juice person comes. Juice shop person comes. He says that I need 10 kgs of mangoes. Now what he has to do here now? If this guy says that no, I cannot provide like this, I can only provide you in terms of tons means, what happens here now? This guy, the broker, is saying that I cannot provide you in kgs, I can only provide you a minimum of 1 ton. Now, can you address this customer? No. Can you address this customer? No. Can you address this customer? No. You will be able to only address these kind of customers who will be there. This number of customers now, when this guy is doing that, maybe the goods might be available for 2 or 3 days of time, you might waste the resources. Now, what he's trying to do now? He is buying a larger capacity, and from there he is distributing like this. Now, what he will do? He go to the market, so he'll say that he'll put separate it. This is one slot of 500 kgs. This is one slot of 50 kgs. This is one slot of 110 kgs. So he'll say that these are the slots of 500 kgs. These are the slots of 10 kgs. These are the slots of 110 kgs. Now he'll tell whoever comes that. He'll tell that, sir, do you want 500 kgs or do you want 10 kgs or do you want 110? Now if this guy says I need 10 kgs, what will he say? You can take one of it. This guy says I need 40 kgs. What he'll tell now? You take 4 of this particular 10 kgs. Correct? This guy comes as 1 ton. So he says that you go and take 1 ton of that. He says that 500 kgs this thing. Now why he is able to save the time? First point, pre-allocation of these things. Second thing, he is able to address the various requirements of the customer and is able to do that. These are your physical resources. He is a broker. Who is a broker here now? Vcloud director is a broker. Vcloud director is a broker. Now he is taking all the physical resources, capacity, and he is allocating to the end customers. Now how he has to allocate now? This block, what we call it as an organization. This block is something called as an organization. So these resources are something what we see called as an organizational VDCs of it. Now here in a vCloud, this organizational VDC is consisting of 20 gigahertz, this consisting of 30 gigahertz, this consisting of 10 gigahertz, this consisting of 40 gigahertz. Now I have an organization. The organization can get resources from one organizational VDC, another organizational VDCs. So what does this organization is having now? It is having two organizational VDCs. So by using this organizational VDC, how much capacity of processing power this organization is getting? 20 gigahertz. By using this organizational VDC, what is the capacity of this is getting here? 10 gigahertz. So what is the total processing power it is having? 30 gigahertz. It is having a total 30 gigahertz processing power. Now here we see it is having a total 30 gigahertz processing power, which is available there.
Single organization can get resource from multiple organizations.
So single organization can consist of multiple organizational VDCs. Each organizational VDC will get resources from only one single provider VDC. This organizational VDC can get resources from only one provider VDC. Simple. So I go to the market as an end customer. There are 4 brokers are available. What is the advantage for me? I can go to the one broker, I can buy some, and I can go to another broker, I can buy some, I can go to another broker, I can buy some. Correct? Correct, right? Here is the same. So you are saying one vCloud director or organizational VDCs. So one organization can have multiple organizational VDCs. Now when I'm creating a virtual machine here, I should be able to know where I'm going to create a virtual machine. Correct? Whether I'm going to create in this organizational VDC or on this organizational VDC. If I'm creating a virtual machine in this organizational VDC, where it has to go underlying? To which provider VDC? From which provider VDC, what you'll understand? And which ESX server it has to create? Cluster. Simple. This is your logical layer till here. At the end, where the virtual machine has to create? ESX server. In a cloud organization, I am creating a virtual machine and I am giving the name of the virtual machine details. The vCloud director application will take the details that on which organizational VDC it has to create. Then it sees that this organizational VDC is coming from which provider VDC. And this provider VDC is coming from which cluster. Now it tells the vCenter server that you create a virtual machine on the so and so cluster and give me the details. Now that will be telling that how much is being consumed, how much is being valued of that. Okay, right. So what does this provider VDC will have? CPU, processing power, storage, and networking. What does this organizational VDC will have? Same. It will have the processing power, it will have the memory, it will have the storage, and it will have the network. What does organizations will have? Multiple organizational VDCs. They get multiple resources from multiple organizational VDCs of it. So how does provider VDC is going to get the processing power? From the ESXi cluster, from the vCenter cluster. How does the provider is going to get the storage? From the ESXi cluster or a vCenter cluster. Now what are the ESX servers which are being available here? Let's understand from a little bit of networking side. Okay. So this is how the entire logical structure of the vCloud application. This is called as a logical architecture or logical structure of the.
Organization get the resources from single
You look here. Look at this diagram. This organization is getting resources from this organizational VDCs. This is getting from this provider VDC.
Also getting that from that provider.
This organizational VDC from this provider VDC. Simple. You're going to the supermarket, or I would say market, vegetable market. You're buying vegetables, one vegetable from one provider, another vegetable from another provider. Whichever you likes it, you buy it.
That organization we will consider as a one tenant.
Yes, organization is a tenant.
One single tenant.
One single tenant.
You can have multiple organizations.
Yes,
They can be from single provider VDC or multiple provider.
provider VDC. So we have internet connectivity. We have internet connectivity. And I have a switch. And I have a switch. And I have the servers. I have these servers. I put the internet cable directly to the switch. And I connected all the servers to the switch. ISP has given me public IP coordination 210.210.210.1 to the 15. It has given me 15 public IP addresses, and you see that you can use it where you want it. Now, what is the advantage and disadvantage of this deployment of architecture? So I have internet connectivity. Directly I'm getting that cable, I'm putting into the switch, and the switch I'm connecting all the servers, and I'm assigning the IP address 210.210.210.1 to this machine, 210.2,
Only 15 can be used.
3, so 4. So only 15 can be used. What is the other advantage? Disadvantage, security problems. Each and every machine is directly accessible to the internet. So we have directly assigned a public IP address to this one, and there is no security at your enterprise level. Now you are directly connecting the external network directly to the external one, now without any kind of a firewall. This is the one disadvantage here, is that there is no security. Where we have to achieve the security? By using the Windows firewall at here, by using the Linux firewall over here, and whatever the operating system personal firewall or antivirus, we have to achieve the security. But at the enterprise gateway level, we don't have any kind of a security. Okay. So let's say these are my ESXS servers. On top of that, what we will have? We'll have a vSwitch. We'll have a vSwitch. We'll have a vSwitch. We have a vSwitch. So on top of the ESXS servers, we are seeing a vSwitch, 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 vSwitch. On vSwitch, what do we see? Port group, 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 and port group of it. Now you are creating a virtual machine, and you are allocating to the port group. You are allocating to the port group. You are allocating to the port group. Now what does this port group does? It goes to the virtual switch. From virtual switch, it goes to physical switch. From physical switch. Now public IP address, where am I assigning now here? Am I assigning to the ESXS server, or am I assigning to the virtual machine? Virtual machine. So now here, I am assigning the public IP address to the virtual machine .1, 210.210.210.2. So I am assigning the public IP address to the virtual machines. So how does virtual machine is accessible to the internet here now? First it will comes to the virtual switch. From virtual switch it goes to the physical switch. From physical switch it is going to the via of it. Clear? Now look at from a cloud perspective. So one of the user is saying that I want a public IP address to be assigned to my server directly. I want a public IP address to be assigned to my server directly. Now in this case, I should have a vSphere port group which is connected to the physical switch, which is directly routable to the internet, correct? So when I create a virtual machine to this one and attach this particular port group and assign an IP address 210.210.210.1, then it is routable to the internet. What are the things you need to control? First question, end user asking you, I need a public IP. What public IP is required? Correct? That is the first and foremost thing. Is that routable in the network or not? The user has installed the OS and he has given some public IP and is saying that this public IP to be routable on the internet. Is it possible? No. Because ISP is going to control the routable of the public IPs. Now, who is going to provide the public IPs? ISP is going to provide. Now, ISP is saying that I am going to provide you 201.210.1.15. Now, you can have only IP addresses between 1 to the 50. Now, you can allocate these IP addresses. Now, you being a network person, and the end user is coming and creating a virtual machine, and he is saying that you need a public IP. There are one method. If you start allocating the IP address manually, can you trace it in the cloud? No. In a cloud, what happens now? Every second, hundreds of customers are going to come into the cloud. Now you cannot make the customer to wait saying that let me see what IP address is ideal and provide you, correct? What we are talking about cloud, dynamic, instant we are talking about. Now, your public IP addresses should be released in a manner of DHCP. In a manner of DHCP, that whichever is that. Now, this user, when he creates a virtual machine, it should connect to a vSphere port group, which is routable in the backend to the direct. Now, who has to enable this connectivity here now? Who has to enable this? Can a system administrator do this? The network administrator has to ensure that okay, there is a public IP network which is connected to this particular switch, and any port group which is connected to this particular one can be routable directly to the internet and due to that. Now, what does network administrator tell? These are the list of IP addresses available, and you can use a port group called as an external. Port group called as an external. Any virtual machine which is connected to the port group called as an external, it is directly reachable to the internet without any kind of a firewall. Clear? Without any kind of a firewall. So now what you are doing, he has put a physical switch over there, and you have connected all the ESX server to the physical switch, and you have created a port groups, and whatever the virtual machine you are going to create and these things. This is one kind of a direct network. This is my organization network. Organization is having the firewall. The organization is having the firewall, and we have a switch. The firewall is connected to the switch. From switch, there are ESX servers which are connected. So we have an ESX server, we have an ESX server, we have an ESX server, we have an ESXi server. So on the ESX server, what do we have? Virtual switch, virtual switch, virtual switch, virtual switch. So on top of the virtual switch, what we have? Port groups. So we have called as a port groups, port groups, port groups. We have called as a port groups like this. This is your physical firewall. From physical firewall connected to the switch. From switch, the ESX servers are connected, and this ESX server is being connected to this virtual switch. On top of that, we are seeing called as an port groups. On top of this, we are seeing called as a port groups. On top of this, we are seeing called as a port groups. On top of that, we are seeing called as an port groups. Now, the firewall is connected to the internet. Now, he has given a public IP called as a 210.210.1 to the 254, which can be used internal within this organization, which is routable to the public. Now, I have two public IPs. 122.212.212.212. This public IP address is being used to be part of the ISP network. So I'm becoming a part of the ISP network, and which I'm saying that I'm able to do that. Now the ISP has given me that you can use 210.210.210.1 to the 254, which is our public IP address, which can be your internal within your organization, which is routable on the public network. So what ISP did, any traffic which is coming to the 210.210.210, it can be read out to this firewall, and this firewall can forward the packet to the internal of it. Now from here, I have called as an 210.210.210.1. I gave an IP address to the firewall. Now this is acting my gateway for my entire internal network. Now I want to create a virtual machines. So I'm creating a virtual machines, and I'm assigning a public IP to this virtual machine. Now are we assigning the public IP to the virtual machine or a private IP? Public IP. We are not assigning the private IP. We are assigning a public IP. Now I am assigning an IP address called so 210.210.210.2, and my gateway as 210.1, and I'm connected to this particular port group. So when I connect to this port group, what is happening? That the packet is coming to the physical switch. From physical switch, the packet is going to the firewall. The firewall is forwarding the packet to the outside. So in the firewall, what I did is that any traffic which is coming for this IP address, I allowed everything. I allowed everything. Now, do I have any security here now? There is a firewall there, but I don't have any kind of a security here. So it can be a router which is sitting there, which is redirecting the traffic. The firewall is acting like a router of it. Now here, even though you have a firewall or a router, but you are assigning the public IP address directly to the machines. So now what happens? Any traffic which is coming to this 210.210.210.2, does the firewall is going to block here? No. So what does firewall is doing? Any traffic which is coming for 210.210.210.2, just pass it. Now what happens? The traffic will pass to go to the virtual machine. So now the virtual machine will allow you to basically call as an access it. In a cloud environment, what we do generally do is as a default for all these pipes, we allow an IP address called as port number 80, 443, RDP port number 3389, SSH port number 22, like this. The rest of the ports are being blocked for these IP addresses. So explicitly, if you want to add the port, then you can basically call as an, again you have to raise a request and you can request for it and you should be able to add it. Now we are seeing here now what is happening. So we are having a public IP address. So you have a public IP address which is being assigned to the virtual machine directly. Okay. Even though we have a firewall or a router, but we are directly carrying this one. Now it is a direct network or a NATed network. It is a direct network. Okay. Now when I go to the here virtual machine guest OS and I say what is my sorry, yeah, this one gateway. Yes, this will be the default gateway for all these machines. Yes, again it will forward to the ISP. Yes. Okay. So the packet is coming to this firewall. From firewall, it is forwarding the packet to the external of it. So similarly, earlier you don't have a firewall directly connected to the switch. Now you are having a firewall or a router. Some people will have a router over here. Some people will have a firewall over here. Okay. Now what is happening here now? So when I go to this machine, when I say what is my IP address, okay. Now this virtual machine is directly accessible on the internet. This virtual machine is directly accessible on the internet. Now we are telling that now in a cloud environment, if the end customer want to assign a public IP address directly to the virtual machine, now what you should be able to get here now? Go to the Vcloud. In a provider VDC, first you should know that which are all the port groups which are available, which can be directly reachable to the internet. First you have to tell the provider VDC, correct? Without telling the provider VDC, can you tell the organization here? No. First we have to tell the provider VDC that what are all the networks are existing, which is my external networks. So we use the terminology called as an external network. The external network is network which is directly reachable to the internet, without any kind of an blockage. Exactly. So now what we have to tell provider VDC here now, which are all the port groups which are existing in the ESX server, which can be reachable to the network publicly, reachable to the public. Clear? Okay. Now here what happens is then, so now we have to tell external networks to the provider VDC of it. Clear? Right. This is my data center. This is my firewall connected to the internet. The firewall is connected to the switch. The firewall is connected to the switch. The switch is connected to the multiple ESXi servers. Multiple ESXi servers. So all the ESXi servers are connected to the switch, 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 switch like this. Okay, simple network. So what do we have on the ESXi server? Virtual switch, virtual switch, virtual switch. So on top of the virtual switch, what we see? We see port groups, we see port group, we see a port group, we see a port group, we see a port group of it. Okay. Now, the ISP has given 210.210.212.1 to the 15 IP addresses. The ISP said that you can use 210.210.210.1 to the 15 IP addresses. Now the firewall is going to listen the traffic for all the 15 IP addresses. And the firewall is having a private IP address called as 19.168.1.1. And the virtual machines are having called as 19.168.1.2, 19.168.1.3, 19.168.1.4. The virtual machines are having 19.168.1.5, 19.168.1.6 like this. So what is my private IP network here? 19.168.1.0. What is my public IP network here? 210.210.212.1 to 15 is my public network. All my public IP addresses are listened by which device? Firewall. So I'm going to configure all these 15 IP addresses on the firewall. Any traffic which is coming from an external to these IP addresses, the firewall will listen, and based on the rules which you're going to configure that. Now what you got a requirement here is one of the virtual machine here that need to be accessible to the internet on a port number called as 80 and 443. So you have deployed a web server, or that web server to be accessible over the internet. I don't want all these servers. I want only one server. Now what does firewall administrator does here? 210.210.210. It is being NATed to the 19.168.1.5 and allowed a port number called as 80 and 443 of it. It allowed a port number called as 80/443 of it. But are we configuring the IP address 212.2 on the guest OS, on the operating system of the machine? No. The operating system of the machine is consisting of 192.168.1.5, which is mine. On the firewall, we are NATing an public IP to a private IP, and we are allowing the port numbers 80 and 443. We are basically allowing this one called as. Now, what is the advantage of this deployment? Security. So the firewall is going to monitor all the traffic which is coming in. Apart from the 8443 port number, the rest of the traffic will be blocked. Only that port will be allowed to the operating system. The entire operating system is not exposed to the public, which we call it as an NATed network. We call it as a NATed network. Who is going to set up the firewall? Network team. Who is going to set up the switch? Network team. Who is going to create a port group? Network team. So basically all the network resources will be controlled by the network team. What is going to do a VMware administrator here? You got to request that, okay? So it should be part of the so and so IP address. So you deploy the virtual machine, you connect to this port group, then you assign the IP address. And rest all things will be controlled by the network team, which to be allowed here. Now what happens here? This is a kind of a network, we call it as a NATed network of it. Okay. Now here, this is a one kind of a network which is being available here. Now look at from a cloud perspective of an end customer. This is my Amazon cloud. This is my Amazon cloud. I mean, the Amazon cloud, I'm deploying 20 virtual machines. Just from a perspective of requirement, you try to understand what is your objective is required. I'm logging into the Amazon cloud. I'm creating a 20 virtual machines. So all the 20 virtual machines are available here. All these 20 virtual machines need not to be accessible from the internet. All these 20 virtual machines should not be accessible from the internet. I have 4 web servers and 6 DB servers. Can we expose DB servers to the internet? No, we really don't expose the DB servers to the internet. Now, this is Amazon cloud, but on that I'm creating a 10 virtual machines. I want 4 web servers to be given accessible to the over the internet, and the 6 DB servers need not to be accessible in the internet. Now, how should my network should look here now? 6 DB servers you can keep it in private network. We'll talk about multiple way of deployment. I can put these 4 web servers in a separate network where I can assign directly the public IP, which is a direct network. So where I'm talking about 4 web servers, I'm connecting to a network where they're directly accessible to the internet. So I'm assigning the public IP address. So what is the disadvantage of that one? Security is a concern. So you're directly exposing all these web servers, the entire server operating system directly to the internet. It is a security concern of it. And I'm going to put these 4 DB servers into a separate network. Now what happens? The web server has to access the DB server. Now you need to establish a routing between that public network to the private network, which is not possible in this kind of a case. Now what I have to do here now? For the web servers, I have 2 Ethernet adapters. One Ethernet adapter is connected to the public Ethernet card, and one adapter is connected to my private Ethernet adapter. Now what happens? The web server will have 2 IP addresses. One is a public IP address, one is a private IP address. So this 6 DB servers will have a private IP address. Now this web server will contact the DB servers using the private IP address, and backend they access the data, and these 4 web servers having the public IP network and which are that. Now that way, what is the advantage here now? The web servers and the DB servers are part of the one local area network, and web servers are also having one more Ethernet card, and which is being connected to the directly internet. Now, what is the risk of here now?
Web servers are exposed.
Web servers are being directly accessible to the internet with the public IP of it. Now, which is not acceptable to the organizations. Yes, as a small organization or as an individual user, I can take that risk. But if we're talking about an organization which is very highly secured, is it going to accept this kind of deployment? No. Now, what you need here now? NATing is required. To get a NATing, what you required here? Firewall is required. Just go into. So you need some kind of a NATing functionality here, where you have to hide some security is required. So in order to have a security, what you need a firewall. Okay. Now, on the cloud, I'm going to have a virtual machine. That virtual machine is going to act like a firewall. Today you take Cisco, you take Juniper, you take Checkpoint, you take every network vendor. They have a firewall for Amazon. They have a firewall for basically Windows Azure. They have a firewall for everything. Now what happens here now? This is my, that is a virtual machine which is acting like a firewall, which is loaded with a firewall application. Clear? So what I'm trying to do here now? So I'll have a public IP address to be assigned to where? For as far as the Amazon is considered, what you are trying to do here, does it know it? It will not be knowing it. You need to set up a network which is your required. What is your requirement now? You need to have a 10 virtual machines, and they should be part of one private network, and 4 servers should be accessible over the network, should have the 4 public IP addresses. Okay. So I'm going to have a virtual firewall on the cloud, and for this firewall, what we need here? How many public IP addresses? 4 public. Who has to provide these 4 public IP addresses? ISP. Now, from our case, the Amazon will provide the 4 public IP addresses, and where we assign that 4 IP addresses? To the one of the interface of the firewall. Now, firewall should have how many interfaces here? 2 interfaces. Here, look at here. One interface is going to the internet, one interface is going to the private network. Similarly, here, this virtual machine, which is acting like a firewall, will have 2 interfaces. One interface is connected to the public network, one interface is connected to the private network. Now here, I am going to have 192.168.2.1.x network, and here he has been given called as in 210.210.213.1, 2, 3, 4 like this. All these 4 IP addresses are assigned on this particular interface which is connected to the public network. This can be my direct network, correct? This can be my direct network, or it could be one more firewall which might be sitting here. What is this firewall doing here now? It is simply forwarding all the packet to this public IP address to this particular firewall. Now this firewall, you are defining the rules. Is Amazon is going to control this firewall, or you are being going to administer this firewall? Let's say I am a customer of the Amazon. Okay, I am trying to use this setup. Am I going to configure this firewall, or Amazon is going to configure this firewall? You are going to configure this firewall. Amazon will not bother. Amazon is not at all bothered about it. Amazon is bothered about what IP addresses you needed. Am I providing that IP addresses or not? Okay, and what network is required? Are you able to set up this network or not? Now, what you are going to do in Amazon? You will buy one checkpoint firewall. You will deploy that checkpoint firewall, and from there you take 4 IP addresses from the Amazon and tell that 4 IP addresses and you connect to this one, and from here it going to that. But do we really see that in the Amazon how physically it is connected? No, we don't know how physically it is being connected, right? Okay, when you can know physically? When you are managing that network, you know it. There's a 2 difference. One is an end user, you don't know what is there inside of it, right? You got an IP addresses, you have to map it like this, you have to map it like this, you have to do that, correct? When you're Amazon administrator, so you're part of the managing the Amazon infrastructure, then you know that how physically they are being connected. Now, being a vCloud administrator, what is your role here now? Are you an end customer or are you an administrator? You are an administrator. Now you should know how it is going to be connected, how the network should be provided to the end customer. What is the requirement of end customer? He wants a firewall, he'll request for a firewall, it should be created and it should be given that. Okay. So now this is a virtual firewall which is going to, in a VMware environment, this is called as a vShield Edge. vShield Edge is a firewall, is a virtual appliance pre-installed with the firewall application. Okay. Now which can allows you to put up some kind of a NATing technology of NATed network. Clear? So this kind of a network which we are called. Now look at from a vCloud perspective now.
Now the 4 web servers are given the private IP.
Yes. So what we are going to do now, we are having the firewall here. You are having these POW4 IP addresses, and all these web servers and DB servers are having the private IP addresses. So in a firewall, what you are going to do now? 210.210.213.2 should be NATed to the which private IP address? 19.168.1. I would say condition 5. 210.201.213.3. I am pointing to the condition 19.168.1.6. So I'm saying 210.201.213.4. I'm giving it to the 19.168.1.7.
No, if the customer doesn't want the 4 public IP, it's a matter of for Amazon only. He can use single public IP address also. He wants the web service to be accessible over the internet.
Yeah.
But how many public IP addresses are using? That is the bar. That is Amazon has to take care.
No. See, that is your requirement, right?
Okay, my requirement is my 4 websites has to be accessible over the internet.
Yeah.
But how many public IPs they are going to use?
That you should know it. How can Amazon will tell you? See, you are going to the just simple.
It's a private address.
It's simple. You are going to the market.
Okay.
Okay. You're going to tell him that I need vegetables. What vegetables you need, that you should know it. He has only set up a market there.
Okay, he will give this total address to the public.
Yeah, he'll say that yes, I have 210.210.210 the series. If you go and ask me that I need 4 IP addresses, he'll provide you 4 IP addresses. Okay.
Security, they are,
So what he is not recommending you to put firewall also. That is your concern. Okay. Amazon is not telling you that you have to put a firewall, you have to do that. He is least bothered about it. He has planned a platform. How you want to use it, you use it and you pay for me. Correct? Government has set up a market. There is a seller, there is a buyer. Okay. What is the role of a government here? Rules and regulations, terms and conditions. What should be sold, what should not be sold. What price it should be, how it should be sold. Correct? What is the seller here now? What goods he has to sell, it is up to him. Correct? Okay. What is the need of a buyer here now? What he want to buy, he will buy it. Can a buyer question the seller that why you are not putting this? He cannot do that. If you want, this is what is available with me. If you want, you take it. If not, you can go with another buyer of it. So simple like that. Here also, so this is your firewall. This is not controlled by the Amazon. You are going to ask Amazon that I need 4 public IP addresses. It is going to provide 4 IP addresses. If I say that I don't need 4 IP addresses, I need only 1 public IP, he'll give you only 1 public IP. Okay. Now what is going to do now? When you say 1 public IP, he'll charge for 1 public IP. When I say 4 IPs means what you'll do now? You'll charge for 4 public IP. Now every public IP is a cost. Okay. So that's what. Now if I say that tomorrow I need 40 public IP, he will give you 40 public IP, but he's going to charge for it. Say I go to the medical store, I say that I need 10 number of medicines. He said, sir, I have only 5 quantity available. So you give me 1 hour time, I'll get another 5 and give it to you. All right. So something. This is what we called as a NATed networks. Now look at it from a Vcloud perspective of it. So how this NATed network is connected to the physical network? What IP address it should have here now? Now here, I am going and putting an Amazon 1.0 network. Dasrath is going and configuring his own network as 1.0 network. And Ramraj is going there and putting up the Vali is going there and configuring the 1.0 network. Now 4 different end users are having the same IP network. In a normal networks, what happens? There is a conflict, right? In a cloud, it is called as an isolated network. We call it as a fence. I can have 1.0 network, you can also have 1.0 network, the other customer also can have 1.0. But every network is independent of the system. Even though physical network is the same, but IP networks are being isolated at your level of it. Look at from a Vcloud perspective of it. First, I have to tell these are your virtual machines. At the end, the virtual machines where they have to sit on the ESX server. On the ESX server, how it has to be connected to the physical network, right? So at the end, the virtual machine has to go to the physical network only. Without that, can it communicate? No. So whether you're doing a virtual firewall, virtual router, virtual switch, but the end for a communication purpose, it has to come to the physical switch level. Look at from a Vcloud perspective of it. So we have a firewall in the data center. I have a switch. I have 2 switches. Over here. I have a switch. I have ESXi servers. I have ESXi servers. I have ESXi server. I have ESX server. ESX server. ESX servers. The ESX servers, all the ESX servers are connected to this particular switch. And this switch is connected to this particular firewall. I have one more switch. This is my physical switch, This is my physical firewall. These are my physical ESX servers. The ESX server is having 2 Ethernet cards. One Ethernet card is connected to which switch? Sorry, which switch? This is a switch which is connected directly to the public network. This is a switch which is connected to my internal network. Now here, I have 210.210.210.x network. This is my public direct network. Clear? So I'm having a network called 210.210.210.network, which is my public network. So the ESX server is having 2 Ethernet cards. One Ethernet card is connected to this particular switch. Another Ethernet card is. Now, how many virtual switches we see here? 2 virtual switch. So one virtual switch. 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 This virtual switch is connected like this via this switch, and this virtual switch is connected like this, right? So on the virtual switch, I have port groups, 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 port groups. So I want a virtual machine which needs a public IP address. Manually, let's say first we'll discuss about a manual method. Being a VMware administrator, what we will do now? We will log into one of the ESX server. vCenter will select one of the ESX server. We create a virtual machine. When we create a virtual machine, which port group we see here now to connect to the public network? So manually, the port group which is available on this particular vSwitch, we select it. So we are going to select the port group of this port on this ESX server on this vSwitch which is connected to the internet. So once we install the OS, then we assign the public IP to this particular virtual machine. Now, do I need to depend on the network administrator for here now? No. I'm just simply assigning a 210.210.210.12. It is publicly directly accessible over the internet. Clear? You got another request saying that create a virtual machine and assign a private IP address called as 192.168.1.10. Now I log into the vCenter, I select one of the ESX server, I create a virtual machine. During the creation of a virtual machine, which port group I choose here now? The second port group here now. Now this is my 192.168.1.0 network. This is my public IP network. I am creating a virtual machine here. I tell that you connect to this particular port group and assign a 192.168.1.10, and this will be accessible onto the physical network of it. And this one. Now I want to do a NATing over here. What is required here now? Firewall. A virtual machine which can act like a firewall here. Now what I am going to do here now? I am going to create a virtual machine. How many Ethernet cards required for this virtual machine? 2 Ethernet cards. One Ethernet card is connected to this particular port group. Another Ethernet card is connected to this particular port group. How many IP addresses will have this virtual machine? 2 IP addresses. What IP address this will have here? Public IP. What IP address will have here? Private. Now look at here. I'm giving 210.210.210.5. I'm giving the IP address for this particular virtual machine, and I'm giving code as 192.168.1.1. So now I want certain virtual machines will act as a 1.1 as a default gateway. Now when this acting as a gateway, all the machines which are going to the internet, they'll come to this virtual machine. From here they go to this switch and go out. I have this virtual machine created over here having an IP address called as 192.168.1.15. Now this machine wanted internet access. So I gave a default gateway as 192.168.1.1 and DNS server as called as 8.8.8.8. Clear? Yeah, just okay. Just. Yeah. No, it can be the same. Just try to understand. Now, this is a virtual machine which is having a 192.168.1.15. Now, this virtual machine want to communicate or access the internet. How does the traffic flow here now? The traffic comes to from here to the virtual switch. From virtual switch again where it goes? To the physical switch. From physical switch it goes to this ESX server. From this ESX server it goes to this particular virtual switch. From virtual switch it goes to the virtual machine. The virtual machine what it does now? It forwards the packet to this virtual switch, and this virtual switch will forward the packet to this virtual switch, physical switch. From this it goes to the firewall and above. Clear? Now all these machines, virtual machines, which are using the 1.1 as a gateway, they have to come to the virtual machine. The virtual machine will transfer the packet from one port to the another port of it. Clear? Now now what we have to tell here now, provider VDC, which is the port group which is for a direct public network, which is the port group which is for a private purpose. Correct? Now can the provider VDC knows that which is the external network, which is the private network here? No. Which is the external network, which is the private network? It does not know it. Okay? Until you tell. Now you being the vCloud administrator, you have to tell the provider VDC that yes, this particular port group is directly connected to the internet and having a public IP code is a 210.210.210.0 network. Now you have to tell the vCloud that this is the port groups which are available here to the as a private network which can be used for the NATing purpose. Now, this can be achieved in three different manners. One is in port groups, one is in VLANs, one is a port group, one is in VLANs, and is called as in private networks or private isolated VLANs. Now, if 25 customers are coming up, one customer is going to use one port group, another customer is going to use another port group, another customer is going to group another port group of it. Now, how many port groups we need to create here now? 25 port groups. Now, we have to tell Vcloud application that I have 25 port groups available, which can be used for allocating to the organizations. Okay. Now, provider VDC first will consist of all these particular net resources. Then you have to map these resources to the organizational VDC. Then organizational VDC is going to get the resource from the organization. Now, who is going to decide to create a firewall here now? The organization administrator is going to decide that, okay, the person who is creating the organization is going to decide that here now. We use a terminology called as an external network. We use called as a NATed network. We use called as a network pools. This will tell us that how virtual machines can access the external network and be part of external network. The external will consist of vSphere port groups. Port groups. Swing button, swing change. Public IP addresses. The Vcloud application will automatically assign the public IP and track the public IP usage. The Vcloud application will act like an DSCP service for allocating the IP addresses. Clear? NATed network. Vcloud will provide a virtual firewall which is called as a vShield Edge. vShield Edge allows to have a private network translated to public IP, allows to configure rules, network rules.
So here basically we are defining what are the public port groups, and private port groups.
Yeah.
And for each organization, they can deploy a separate vShield Edge.
Yes, exactly.
So that vShield Edge can be in another ESX also. Between different port groups. For different organizations.
That vShield Edge is going to sit one of the ESX server within that cluster. No, no, it depends on your
No,
requirement.
that's what I'm telling.
No, one vCenter, one vShield.
So vShield Manager is a network management tool. That is an vShield Manager will provide you vShield Edge
I'm talking the Vichy Edge.
components. vShield Manager allows you to manage multiple vShield Edge devices
When the
to
customer
deploy
wants
the
to
vShield
install,
Edge. vShield Edge is the actual firewall. Yeah, please.
whenever each customer wants, the separate Vichy Edge will be deployed.
Deployed. So the vCloud will automatically deploy that vShield Edge.
All we are defining what are the public port groups and
So what first you need to provide to the provider VDC. From provider VDC, you are going to provide to the organizational VDC. When you are creating an organizational VDC, then you can decide whether you want a NATed network, whether you want a private network, whether it is connected with the direct network.
Means instead of using vShield Edge,
Hmm.
you can use checkpoint or something like that.
Now here you cannot do that. So VMware came up with called as an VMware NSX. So that you can use it. The network resources which can be used by port group, or which can be used by vCloud to allocate to the organizational VDCs. Can be vSphere port groups, can be VLANs, or it can be called as an VXLANs, nothing but vCloud port groups.
these public IPs can always in different ranges.
It can be in different range also. Again, you have to classify right.
That we will decide which public IPs we will use.
Yes, in a vCloud environment, you are going to define it. So if you're going to have one more public IP series here, okay, what happens now? Just give me a minute. Right. So we cannot guarantee that the virtual machines of the one customer will sit on only one ESX server. So we are creating a group of servers and we are allocating resources to provider VDC and we are allocating the resources to the organizational VDC and organization. When it's creating a virtual machine, that virtual machine might sit on this ESX server, that might sit on this ESX server, might sit on this particular ESX server. So now I created a network called as 19.168.1.0 network, and having a public IP network called as 210.210.5 of it, or whatever that. So I need a one virtual machine which is acting like a firewall, which is connected to the public network. I need another network which can be connected to the 1.0 network. This 1.0 network should be accessible on all these three ESXi servers. Okay, it means that physically they should be able to communicate itself. Now that is where in a network pools, you can define that list of port groups which can be used by the organization network, which can establish their own private network or NATed network, or they can use called as a VLANs. Again, what is a VLANs here now? It is a port group. So in a vSphere port group, what we are going for each and every VLAN, you are going to create one port group and you are going to assign the one VLAN of. Now what does when it specify the VLANs means? The vCloud application is going to create port groups after allocating the VLANs to the customers. Now here what I am going to tell vSphere port groups, what port groups exist in physical network which can be used by vCloud to allocate to the organizations. Is it clear? I can create 50 port groups before itself and I can provision to the vCloud. First, what I have to do here now, I have to create a 50 port groups at a network level. Then I allocate the 50 port groups to the vCloud. Then vCloud will start allocating that port groups to one port group to one customer, another port group to another customer, another port group to another customer, another port group based on that requirement of it. Clear? Or private and public. In private also you can have multiple port groups. One port group for one customer, another port group for another customer, another port group for another customer.
The customer wants the public,
You will give them both in that case. First, you are telling private, you are telling the provider VDC, you are telling the vCloud that these are my external networks, these are my private networks, which can be used by the organization. Now, how the organization want to set up, it is up to them. Okay. The VLANs, the list of VLAN IDs which can be used by the vCloud application and allocate to the organizations or to the organizations. The vCloud application will create port groups automatically on the ESXi servers and map the VLAN ID to the port group. Now what you are telling here now, I am telling that from VLAN ID 40 to the 100 via VLAN IDs. So I am going to tell that I am going to provide VLAN IDs 40 to the 100. Now you can start allocating this VLAN IDs to the n number of customers. So for one customer, I allocate VLAN ID 40. For another customer, what I do? VLAN ID 41. For another customer, I allocate 42. For another customer, I allocate 43. Like this, the vCloud application can start allocating the VLANs to that case. At the end, when the VLAN has to communicate network, so it requires a port group on the ESXi server. So vCloud application, what it does, it is going to create a port group and map that port group to the VLAN ID, and whatever the virtual machine is created by that particular organization will map to that particular port group of it. Okay. These are your, again, so now you have to tell. So here what I can do now, I can say coordination port group 1 comma port group 2, comma port group 3, comma port group 5, comma port group 6, comma like this. So I have to pre-create all the port groups and I have to allocate to the vCloud. In a case of VLANs, what I'm doing, I'm just defining that what VLAN entities are existing, and the vCloud is going to create the port groups on the ESXi servers. The VXLANs are basically called as private VLANs, okay, which can be used for isolation of networks.
So what is the difference here between vSphere port group and VXLAN?
VXLAN, again, it is a port group on the vSphere only, but that will not be connected to the external network. Okay, that communication will flow between only the ESXi servers, but it will not go out of that one. It is isolated networks, we call it. Yeah.
Whatever VLANs you can underlying physical should be connected to the physical switch and they have to come with the trunk ports.
Correct. Now that whatever you have to trunk ports, that physical network, they have to make sure that whatever the VLANs which have been given in the network administrator, that should be trunked. All these things he has to make sure that.
No, we also wait the ESX links under the physical.
That's what they should be trunked. Otherwise, they cannot communicate. The organizations can use external network, where the virtual machines can be connected directly to the external network, which we use called as other terminology called as a direct network. The organizations can use called as a NATed network, where you can have the vShield edge firewall and they can establish the communication of that. The organization can use a private network. So when they're creating a NATed network and when they're creating a private network, they need the resources. They can use a vSphere port group, or they can use VLANs, or they can use called as private X VLANs. Okay. So when they're connected to the private external network, to which particular port group it is connecting, automatically define. You have to define it. When they're using a NATed network, one is an external port group, one is your internal port group. For internal purpose, which port group should be used? Where it is going to get here now? From the network pool. Yeah. So first is an external port group. So we need to define find the port group which is connected to the external network, and we need to define the public IP addresses and default gateway of the public network. So we need to define the network pools. So we need to define the list of port groups available for organizational network purpose. define the list of VLANs available for the organization. All the three are not required. You can use, some organizations may use port groups, some organizations may use VLANs, some organization may use private VLANs. Define the list of private VLANs available for the organizations. So first, what we need to define to the Vcloud application, right? First, Vcloud should know what all the resources are available. Then it can start allocating to the organizations. So how are we telling the storage, memory, and processing power? We are telling that what are all the ESX servers which are available. We are telling that. Similarly, we have to tell what external networks are available, what network pools are available, which can be used by the organizations. Can the organization know that it is connected to this external? Can the end user will not be knowing it? How the physical connectivity, the end user will not be knowing it. It is only the vCloud administrator will be knowing that how the physically it is being connected there.
So we'll take a break for 15 minutes.
So I'm just logging into the Vshield first. Let me integrate this one with the vCenter server.
So we have one vShield manager per vCenter.
For vCenter.
vShield edge per organization VDC.
The organizational VDC, which is going to act like a firewall.
One vShield edge per organization VDC.
So one organizational VDC can have multiple vShield edge. Like if you want to have two firewalls, you can have two firewalls. Now I can hello. Right. So let me go to the vCloud. Just 2 minutes. It's just. Yeah, can you hear me now, Bhaskar?
Yes, sir, I'm able to hear you now.
Yeah, okay, fine. మురళిదా ఒక 20 minutes తర్వాత కాల్ చేయమని చెప్పు బెటర్. So I'm just attaching a vCenter. Right. So first I'm creating the provider VDC. So last week, which we have seen, what is a provider VDC. So I'm just giving AL provider VDC, ALP VDC, AL provider VDC. So I'm just enabling the hardware version 7.0. I'm selecting the vCenter cluster. So as of now, there are no external networks. So I'm just saying storage. I'm adding all the storage. So I'm going to deploy the agent. So just we created a provider VDC. Let's wait for this host to get ready. So it's going to create one resource pool over here. We can see system VDC. This is for provider VDC. Right. So we have added the storage. We have added the ESXi server. Now, when you go to the provider VDC, we would see that the capacity of this one could be the ESX servers which are available there. Okay. So we see the host which are available and the data stores which are available under this particular provider VDC of it. So we need to provide the called as an external networks and network pools. So I'm just going to the external networks. When the home you see called as an create an external network. Okay. So before creating external network, we need to create a port group on the ESXi server. So which is the port group which is being directly connected to the external network. So I'm going to the ESXi server. So I'm going to the distributed switch. So I'm creating a port group called as an EXT network. Vcloud -EXT network. So now I'm going to tell the Vcloud application that this port group is directly connected to the external network. So which can be used by the organizations in this case. So I'm going to the Vcloud application, create an external network, vCenter. So we can see vSphere port groups. Which port group is being used to connect to the external network. So I'm just selecting the Vcloud network. Just select next. Configure external network. Specify the IP addresses. What are all the public IP addresses and which is the default gateway for your IP address. Just say add gateway IP address. I'm giving 210.210.210.1. Subnet mask I'm giving 255.255.255.0. Now what are all the IP address ranges which are available there for allocating to the organizations. So I'm just 210.210.210.2. I'm giving it called 210.210.210.250.
That port group, which is connected to external switch.
External switch. This is my external firewall IP address. This is my external firewall IP address. So I'm going to allocate these IP addresses to the virtual machines, which need to be accessible to the directly to the public. Okay. So how they can communicate? So these public IP addresses, the virtual machines which are going to communicate, having this one, they'll be connected to this particular port group. So as in a port group, I'm enabling a direct connectivity to the firewall. Okay. Click on next. Network name, I'm saying called as a Vcloud -210 IP series. So what we told Vcloud, so what public networks we have? So we told Vcloud that 210.210.210, there is an IP series which is connected to the vSphere port group called as an Vcloud external network. Now one of the organization user creates a virtual machine and he says that you want to connect to the public cloud or external network. So indirectly what Vcloud has to do that? It has to create a virtual machine on the ESXi server. To which port group it should map that? Vcloud external network. Right? So that is what information you're giving to the Vcloud, because Vcloud does not know that what is your port group which is being available there. Right. So like this you can create one more port group. So I'm going to the network. I'm creating one more port group. Okay. So I'm just giving it called as an Vcloud external 213 network. So I'm going to the Vcloud. I'm creating one more external network. I'm saying Vcloud X3 network. You see that it is displayed here. So I'm just selecting the vSphere port group. So what IP addresses are being associated with this one? So I'm saying 210.210.213.1, 255.255.255.0, 210.210.213.2, 210.250 IP addresses. So now I told Vcloud application that VLAN ID 0 is in use.
And especially VLAN ID.
VLAN ID. It should not conflict over there.
For each external network, do we use a different port?
For each, that depends on your physical network, how they are being configured.
You can configure one port with a lot of IP addresses. The config will give you some portion of those.
See, there are multiple ways where you can do that. So on a firewall, if you have 2-3 different IP networks, one method is that you need 3 IP interfaces. Okay, one interface will have one IP address, another interface will have another IP address. That is one method. Another method, on one interface, you can create 3 virtual interfaces on a firewall. Okay, so it depends on the physical network how they are being configured. That is not that Vcloud. Okay. We are providing the physical resources to the Vcloud application.
For each different port group, same gateway will be the same. External, that is firewall.
Firewall will be the same with multiple IP addresses. See, firewall is a physical connectivity. IP network is something different. So one IP network to another IP network, you should have IP gateway. So firewall is going to act like a gateway there. So the firewall can have multiple interfaces. All these multiple interfaces can come and sit on the one switch, or can go into the multiple switches, physical switches also. Right.
When an end user tries to create a virtual machine,
Yeah.
it requires to connect to the external network.
Yeah.
Can that automatically pick any of the external?
No, we need to define that. Now we need to allocate to the organization which IP network is available for this organization. Now, as of now, what we are trying to do, we are providing the resources to the Vcloud. But still, as of now, we didn't provide the resources to the organizations. So that part we have to see that. So now I'm going to the network pools. I'm going to tell that what networks are being available for the organizations, which they can use it. So one, already we see that one is coming up here. So I'm just creating a network pools, VLAN backed. So this networks will be available for organizations for NATed purpose or private isolated purpose. If you're going to use the direct means, what happens? We are already provided direct networks for the organizations. In this case, if the user is trying to use an external, he is going to get connected to this particular port group and is going to get a public IP address. When you want a NATed means, what happens now? You need a private network over there. 198.168.1.0 or a 2.0 or a 3.0. So how are you going to separate that one? Is it going to be based on the VLAN basis or is it going to be based on the port group basis? That resources you need to provide here now. So I'm creating a network pool, VLAN backend. So I'm going to define what are all the list of VLANs which are be available. So I'm giving a VLAN ID 2 to the 5 VLANs which we have. So now I'm telling the Vcloud application that I have a VLAN ID 2, VLAN ID 3, VLAN ID 4, VLAN ID 5, which are available, which can be used by the organizations. Okay, for one organization they can use VLAN ID 1, another organization they can use VLAN ID 2, sorry, VLAN ID 3, another organization they can use VLAN ID 3, another organization they can use VLAN ID 4, another organization they can use VLAN ID 5. To which particular port group they are being connected? You can see the switch which is being connected here. Now the Vcloud director is going to create port group automatically when it is being mapped to the organization.
This page diagram, I can't find the last one. Yeah, this one. These are the private.
Yes, these are your private.
Now we are defining these private.
Private one, yes. You are defining these private resources which are available for organizations. This year I've given one diagram for only one organization. If there are multiple organizations, what happens here now? You are one organization, I'm one organization. I'm using a 1.0 network. Can you use 1.0 network? If you use it as a conflict, and you might see kind of problem over there. Okay. So what you should have a different IP network connected to the different port group. Then you will define to the vCloud that, okay, these are the list of all the port group VLANs which are existing. So which VLAN you want to assign, which VLAN to be assigned to my organization. I'm taking VLAN ID 2 to the VLAN ID 5 available for vCloud. Okay. Simple. How you are defining that? Where to create a virtual machine for a vCloud? In the clusters, you are telling that ESXi cluster. The vCloud knows that the processing power, memory, and storage is coming from the ESXi cluster of it. How you are defining that? Which public IP network is available there? So you are creating a port group and you are telling the vCloud that this port group is available for, which is connected to the directly public network. Correct? Now for a private network, okay, what all the network resources are available there? That resources can be based on the VLANs, that can be based on the port groups. Okay, port groups means you are manually creating a port group, you are manually assigning the VLAN IDs, and you are populating to the vCloud application. That is one method. Another method, what is we are trying to do? We are defining the VLAN IDs, and vCloud application is going to create port groups automatically and map the VLAN IDs to the port groups there. So one way method, you are defining the port groups. The another method called as a VLANs method. So here I am defining the VLAN IDs 2 to the 10. I'm defining VLAN IDs. I'm just saying called as a. Now how many VLANs we are existing available, networks available? One VLAN is one network, right? One VLAN ID is a one network. So 2 is a one network, 3 is a one network, 4 is a one network, 5 is a one network, 6 like this. We see there are total 9 networks which are available here now. So one network I can assign to one organization, another network I can assign to another organization, another network to another organization, another network to another organization. Got my point now? Okay. So on this particular DB switch, the name of the network pool, I'm just saying called as a VLAN 2 to the 10 of it. Just say finish.
In the vSphere one, we create the port group and while we assign the VLAN ID for that port group.
Yeah.
Here we are doing reverse.
Reverse. So we are giving the VLAN IDs. Then vCloud is going to create port group and assign the VLAN ID automatically. I'm creating a PC1 VLAN. I'm giving it called as an 20. PC20 I'm giving it. I'm creating a port group. vCenter is down.
First we are creating in the vCenter, then we are adding to vCloud.
So VLANs, we don't need to do anything at vCenter level. Only for direct networks, external networks, first you have to create a port group at a vCenter level, then you have to map it to the vCloud. If you're creating a VLAN ID based network poles, then you simply define the VLANs. That VLAN should exist at your physical network level.
Those VLANs are in the private IP range.
Private range.
But we don't define the what are the IP address for that VLAN.
The network administrator will have to tell. So he has to give all that resources.
The organization networks. Private networks.
Private. Not to do, we are creating only resources to the Vcloud. So we are not defining any networks or resources which are required for it. Now I'm going to the Vcloud. I'm creating a port groups. 21. I'm giving VLAN ID 21. I'm creating a port group. Or let's say 22. So I'm pre-creating the port groups. Now I can present these port groups to the Vcloud. That you can use these port groups for allocating to the organizations. One method we gave VLAN IDs. That is one option. The another option is in port groups. So what is the advantage of here is who is going to create these port groups? Network administrator will create port groups. He will configure the network and he will say that you can use these port groups to allocate it for organization purpose. Now I am going to the Vcloud. So I am saying that vSphere port group packet. Vcloud. Now it is going to ask you what are the port groups you want to add. And I am selecting this port group, selecting this port groups, I am selecting these three port groups are available for this particular. Next. I am saying what is a network pool of port groups. It is not necessary that we have to use all the three. It is up to you purpose which you want to do that. So one organization may use VLAN based, the other organization may use port group based. Now I see that we have the resources which are available called as a port. Now we are told that the Vcloud can use port group 20, port group 21, 22 to allocate to the organization. But we didn't map to the organization yet. We are only creating a pool of resources and we are telling Vcloud. Which one to use did we tell to the organization? Not yet. We are just providing the resources to Vcloud. The later point we have to see that. Now you can create an isolated networks. This is your VLAN based network isolated. This is your network resources. Number of isolated networks. I'm just giving a 10 networks. If you want any VLAN address, you can map it to the VLAN address. I don't want any VLAN address. Distributed switch. I'm giving called as a network pool of isolated.
For isolated also we have to give the port name. Which port?
It is going to create port groups automatically. Then ID, active and so far what we have understood is how to provide the processing power, memory, storage to the Vcloud, how to provide the network resources to the Vcloud, so that the Vcloud can distribute that resources to the organizations. Okay. So next part what we need to see here now, how we have to distribute, how the networks can be created, how the virtual machines can be created, and all these things. Right, so we'll stop here for today.
Basically, here there are two types of network. One is external network for access internet, and another is for their purpose only organization.
That is a NATed network, and what we have used 3 networks.
Okay.
One is an external. NATed direct is public. NATed is going to have his own firewall, private network, and as well as public network.
Okay, you want to access outside also.
Outside also.
Third is only
isolated network.
Okay, for the last 2 networks, we are giving the
what are the resources to be available?
First one is just we are giving a port group.
So this way we can create called as a network. Just before we end up, you can see here. I am creating an organization. I am giving it called as an Acutelearn. I am not integrating with AD.
What you are creating an organization.
Yeah, I am creating an organization. I'll explain it later. But just whatever you did now, right? Just see how it's going to be visible to them. I am adding an administrator account. AL admin. Now I created one organization called as an Acutelearn. Now this organization should get resources. So this is an organization. If this has to get resources, means what is required? Organizational BDC is required. So we have so far we did here. We just create an organization. Now the organization should get the resources. So we have to create an organizational BDC and provide the resources. Go to the Vcloud and say organizational BDCs. Create an organizational BDC. To which organization you want to allocate the resources? Show me the organization name. Organization called as an Acutelearn. From which provider BDC you want to allocate the resources? You are getting the point? Right. So what I told you that I am creating an organizational BDC for this organization called as an Acutelearn, which can access the resources. From which provider BDC it has to access the resources? Now when I select this provider VDC, when this organization is creating a virtual machine, it is at the end which goes to ESX server with a wheel map to this particular one. Now down you can see what external networks you want to map to this organization. You are getting here? Okay. One is this gives you what is processing power, memory, storage. This will give you your network. So I'm just selecting this network. This I'll do allocation pool. I'm selecting it. Now back. You see what is the amount of processing power you want to allocate. 5.7 gigahertz RAM, how much storage you want to allocate, number of virtual machines. I'm giving 200 GB hard disk space. From where you want to get the networks. If they want to create a private networks, which network they want to create. We see called as a network pool isolated VLAN 10 VLAN. So I'm just selecting a VLAN 10. So here total available networks, how many networks available here? 9. Because 2 to the 10, 2 is one network, 3 is one network. So how many networks you want to allocate for this organization? I'm allocating one organization.
So 9 port groups will be created.
Total available networks, VLAN 2 to 10, right?
Oh, that means
yeah, total 9 port groups. So when I select 1 means, so out of the 2 to the 10, 1 VLAN will be allocated to this particular one. Click on next. You see create an edge gateway. So what is this edge gateway does now? Acts as a firewall. Gateway name. I'm giving it called as an so AL edge. Okay. To which public network it should connect here now? We should let us to connect to one interface has to connect to the public, one interface should connect to the network. So I'm just selecting it's going to connect one interface to this one. So you see that IP put default gateway you have to give. Next. Create a network for this virtual data set connected to this particular name gateway. So we can see the network name.
We have defined the private side.
Private.
Vcloud edge.
Yes.
Same port group, the Vcloud edge connected. Now the another interface.
Now this is public interface. IP address of this particular 2.210.210.2.
How do we know the public interface?
Here we selected right. Port group 210. So I'm creating an interface of here for a vShield and I'm giving it code as a 210.210.210.2.IP address. Name of the organizational VDC ALOVDC. You see that is created ALOVDC resource pool. For each and every organizational VDC, it is going to create one resource pool. Now it is deploying an vShield edge, creating a coupling a virtual machine configuration system VDC. It is creating code as one. You see that vShield edge ALV edge. Now I'm logging into I'm just logging off from this particular portal. I'm going to the organization called as an Acute Lab. /war. Now this is the organization portal. So the individual organizations having individual portal. Now he will be able to create virtual machines here. I'm going to my cloud. I'm creating a app. Now you can see that from which organizational VDC does to create. One organization can have multiple VDCs. This organization can get from this VDC, from this VDC. And which VDC you want to create virtual machines. Here you can see that. So the leasing period, new virtual machine, VM101, whatever version. You see the number of CPUs, sockets, memory, how much amount of RAM you want to allocate. You come, okay. Next, to which network it should belong. Virtual machine you can see, to network which belongs to the storage policy, this one. Next, go for a NICs, add a network. What is the IP address? You want to allocate to this machine. Next one, coordination, to network. So declare. Yes. So you are creating everything from a portal. Now backend is going to where here now? Onto the SXS. Now see under OVDC it is creating a VM101 and whatever the code group which belongs to the right, it is going to create code group automatically. Right, we'll stop here. So I'm just to view that how it is going to be. Next week I'll explain about organizational VDCs and organizations. Last.